Hi guys, welcome back to GP Blog. Pre-season testing is done and dusted, and the season opener at the Bahrain Grand Prix is now right around the corner. We've already made some bold predictions and listed some potential dark horses for the 2022 season, but here are our 2022 Drivers' Championship predictions. Before we delve into the entire list, it's worth noting just how tough this really was. The second pre-season test in Bahrain provided almost no help whatsoever, except the Mercedes were still struggling with porpoising, Red Bull and Ferrari looked quick, while McLaren could have reliability issues. However, it's a long season, so developments and upgrades can happen throughout the year. The midfield is especially tight, as was predicting who will bring up the rear, as everyone seems to have their positives. But we've tried our best to filter through the potential outcomes and come up with a definitive list. So, without further ado, here are GP Blog's Drivers' Championship predictions. Haas. We start right at the back with Haas. The American team spent the entirety of 2021 focusing on this year's car, but we're not sure if it's been worth it. Mick Schumacher may have put in a good shift on the final day of testing, and Kevin Magnussen may have led the second day's timing sheet, but we think that could simply be due to the engine being turned right up. They'll certainly be closer than last year, and I can easily foresee a situation where the midfield and back markers blur into one. With that in mind, Haas's driver lineup will see them finish bottom of the pile in the Constructors, but we don't think they'll be P20 in the Drivers' Championship. Schumacher will be 19th, while returning Magnussen will show his experience in pipping the young German driver to P18. Alfa Romeo. Now, they had a very encouraging pre-season test in Bahrain and have been tipped by some for impressive things this year, but Alfa Romeo will still be near the back in 2022. As a rookie, Guan Yu Zhou could struggle, and despite Valtteri Bottas being an experienced head alongside him, the Chinese driver may find it tough. Bottas, on the other hand, will do great things with the car and could put out some amazing results on occasions, but it might not be enough to consistently score points. Like I said earlier though, they could basically be a midfield team with how close the margins are set to be. We predict Zhou will be last, while Bottas will impress in P15. Williams. They made great strides last year, closing the gap to the midfield, but we can't see Williams advancing much more. Alex Albon is a very sensible replacement for George Russell, and while we aren't Nicholas Latifi's biggest fans, he's still adapted to the team and the sport well. They'll be in the mix for points fairly often, but the gap between their drivers will stop them advancing any further up the grid. As for the positions, Latifi we have down as 17th, while Albon is as high as 14th. Aston Martin. Lawrence Stroll arrived with a wad of cash, big ideas, but last year that resulted in a decline rather than an improvement. And while it's a new year, the team doesn't seem to have made too many strides forward. Testing was fairly positive and they look pretty decent, but with competition so fierce, we can't see them competing any higher than for the lesser points. Lance Stroll is a fairly underrated driver in my mind, but he was off the pace last season, and I can't see it improving much this time around. We have him down in 16th due to the minuscule differences between the midfield teams, while the four-time world champion Sebastian Vettel could fare a lot better. We predict the German will finish 11th, but the points gap between the two may not be too big. Alpine. The French team had an average test at best, but with a solid driver lineup and some upgrades throughout the year, we can see a decent finish for them. Nothing spectacular, nothing too disappointing. Ocon in 13th and Alonso in 10th is how we see it. But the pair could easily be the other way around. AlphaTauri. It was almost a one-man band at AlphaTauri last season, with Pierre Gasly carrying the team in regards to points. We believe the Frenchman will have a similarly impressive campaign, finishing 9th this time around. But the major difference will be the fact that Yuki Tsunoda will step up this year. The Japanese driver arrived with a lot of hype last season, but he failed to deliver. However, that will change this season. He won't match the supreme Gasly, but 12 will be a respectable finish. McLaren. Now this could surprisingly go horribly wrong. McLaren looked 4th best in Barcelona, maybe even pushing 3rd, but in Bahrain testing they had issues with reliability and pace. Lando Norris wasn't able to challenge near the front and spent a lot of time in the garage as alterations happened on his car. Not an ideal start, but after finishing 3rd and 4th in the past 2 seasons, we're banking on improvements throughout the year. They'll be away off the leaders, but a 7th place for Norris and an 8th place for Ricciardo is what we reckon is in store for the Woking-based team. Ferrari, the wild card, the team that could surprise. Ferrari look prime and ready for a title charge, but naturally there are still some question marks surrounding them. While they do look like they have the package to challenge and arguably have the best driver lineup in the entire grid, Do they truly have what it takes to beat Mercedes and Red Bull over an entire season? Maybe, maybe not. Over a season, we back Red Bull and Mercedes to find speed, and so Ferrari will stay third in our books, but they'll be oh so close. A three-way constructors fight is likely to commence, and we think it could be as close as 2010, when just 16 points separated the top four. In regards to Ferrari, we think Charles Leclerc will just edge out his teammate, finishing 4th. Sainz will be 5th. Red Bull, the reigning champion Max Verstappen, will be in and amongst it once again, but his teammate Sergio Perez may be a little off the pace. Think Button against Hamilton at McLaren in the aforementioned 2010 season. There or thereabouts, but not quite in the title fight. Perez will finish 6th, behind both Ferrari drivers, while Verstappen will narrowly, and we mean narrowly, miss out on the title. Mercedes, the 8-time Constructors' Champions, will do it again, but they have plenty of work to do. Porpoising affected them more than any other team in pre-season testing, and if they can't work it out, then they'll slip behind Ferrari, we're sure. However, Mercedes' prowess at finding solutions after a tricky start is what swung it their way in the title fight. We think Lewis Hamilton will finally win his 8th world title to move clear of Michael Schumacher for Drivers' Championships. As for his new teammate George Russell, he'll be a little way down in 3rd, fighting with the Ferrari drivers and just winning that battle. So, that's it. Our predictions for the 2022 F1 season. Hamilton, Verstappen, Russell and Leclerc will make up the top 4. Then Sainz, Perez, Norris, Ricciardo, Gasly and Alonso round off the top 10. Vettel, Tsunoda and Ocon to be fighting for the lower points positions along with Albon, Bottas and Stroll, while Latifi, Magnussen, Schumacher and Zhou finish off the list. Do you agree with our predictions? I'm sure a lot of you won't, so please let us know your 1 to 20 order in the comment section down below, and we'll try to reply to as many as possible. Before we go, I need to tell you about some big news from GP Blog. We will be relaunching our podcast on our YouTube channel, so stay tuned for that, because we will be revealing our Constructors' Championship predictions, as well as providing regular updates after every Grand Prix, so stay tuned for that. But that's it for now, I'll catch you next time.